At my sister's medical school graduation party, I had been paying $8,000 every year, but she said to me, "Your job is done. You shouldn't be here," and Mom said, "You don't know your place," and laughed. I just smiled and left. However, when they returned home, their smiles disappeared. The invitation to Michelle's graduation party arrived at the end of spring. It came in a cream-colored envelope, embossed with gold lettering, and the name of a prestigious hotel. It felt like a symbol of her success. To be honest, my heart skipped a beat. On the day of the party, I chose the most elegant dress I owned. I curled my hair a little more carefully than usual, added a soft touch of glamour to my makeup, and stood in front of the mirror. When Katie smiled and said, "Mom, you look beautiful," I almost cried. The venue was even more luxurious than I'd imagined. A grand banquet hall decorated in white and gold, elegant music flowing through the air. It was like something out of a movie. At the reception, I gave my name. The woman at the desk checked the guest list, tilted her head slightly, and said, "I'm sorry, but I don't see your name." I showed her the envelope. "This is my invitation." She took it hesitantly and started checking again when a voice called out behind me. "Jessica? What are you doing here?" I turned to see my sister and mother standing there. My sister looked visibly shocked, while my mother wouldn't even meet my eyes and grimaced. "What do you mean?" "I was invited to Michelle's graduation party, so I came." "That can't be right. There must be some mistake. Your name wasn't on the family list. This isn't your place anymore." My mother's voice was low but clear. It was almost absurd, like a cruel joke. "I'm family, aren't I?" I said quietly. Michelle gave a dry smile. "Your job is done. There's nothing more we need from you." "What do you mean by that?" I asked. She didn't even flinch. "I mean you're no longer needed. This isn't your place anymore." I felt my heart pounding, my fingers going cold. I struggled to keep my mind from going blank. "How can you say that? Everything I've done up until now was just something to check off a list?" It was then that my mother, standing beside me, muttered under her breath, "You've always been out of your depth, Jessica." She still wouldn't look at me. Her lips just kept moving. "What's a lunch lady doing at a gathering of doctors? You were meant to stay behind the scenes for us. Coming out here like this, it's laughable." I couldn't say a word. My throat tightened and closed soundlessly. In my hands was the gift Katie and I had picked out together. I clutched it so tightly my hands were shaking. "Please just go home. That cheap dress is embarrassing." At those words, it felt like the whole room fell silent. I could feel every gaze on me. To them, Michelle, my mother, I wasn't family. I was an outsider. "Security, please escort this woman out. She's not supposed to be here." At Michelle's words, a man in a black suit approached. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but it felt like a dream." My feet wouldn't move. Everything I just heard didn't feel real, and my mind echoed with a hollow silence. Not even tears came. But deep inside, something cold and heavy had sunk into my chest. "I understand." The words finally came out, too calm, too devoid of feeling to sound like my own voice. I quietly turned away. I didn't lift my eyes. I didn't even straighten my back. I just started walking so slowly I couldn't even hear my own footsteps. The weight of their eyes pierced my back, but I couldn't bring myself to look up. I focused only on leaving the hall without saying a word. Even outside, my heart felt no lighter. I couldn't bring myself to go straight home. Instead, I wandered into the hotel lobby and sat in a corner of the lounge. The cushion beneath me swallowed my weight, but my mind was still spinning with the words I just heard. "Your job is done. You don't belong here. Out of your depth." My fingers trembled as they gripped my phone. Inside me, quiet yet searing, anger and grief began to churn. The feelings I had buried for so long were slowly, unmistakably changing something within me. Looking back, I think it all began that day. The day I decided to support Michelle's dream. My name is Jessica Lawrence. I wake up at 4:30 every morning to work in the cafeteria of a public elementary school. It's not glamorous work, but the children say that was yummy. Makes it all worthwhile. One day, my mother told me, "Michelle wants to become a doctor." Michelle is my younger sister, 10 years younger, actually. And when I moved out, she was still just a little girl in elementary school. She was always a dreamy, cautious girl. So when she declared she wanted to study medicine, I felt proud. But reality was harsh. My mother sighed, "Not with my income. It's impossible." I sat in silence on the phone, staring at my cold coffee. I wanted that girl to chase a dream I never could. "I'll pay the tuition," I heard myself say. Though I worked full-time, my husband Nicholas ran a real estate company, and we relied heavily on his income. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. So I decided to pay Michelle's tuition $8,000 a year. I didn't ask for anything in return. Watching Michelle pursue her dream of becoming a doctor was enough for me. About 6 months into her college life, she called me one day. It's hard to get by on scholarships alone. Michelle's voice sounded uncertain, almost anxious, and I believed her without a second thought. I just assumed medical school was more expensive than I'd imagined: utilities, groceries, calm transportation, textbooks. And with such a demanding program, she probably didn't have time to work a part-time job. Thinking it might give her peace of mind, I started sending her living expenses. At first, it was about $300 a month, but it gradually increased until I was transferring over $1,000 to her every month. I never said a word. In some way, I think I took comfort in being someone she could rely on. But the moment I realized it had all been an act, something inside me shattered. It happened during a break at work when a coworker was scrolling through social media. "Isn't this your sister?" she asked, turning her phone toward me. On the screen was Michelle, wearing a glamorous cocktail dress, smiling at a luxurious city restaurant. On the table were shopping bags that looked like designer brands, and the captions read things like "treating myself today and nothing like a resort to unwind." I froze. As I scrolled further, I saw poolside resorts, spa treatments, high-end fashion, an endless stream of luxury. There was no sign of financial struggle. In fact, she seemed to be living far more lavishly and freely than I was. While claiming to be struggling, Michelle had been living like this all along. The money I had saved by skipping things for my own child Katie's clothes, little indulgences, had gone to fund Michelle's lifestyle. And that thought made my skin crawl. But the final blow came on Katie's birthday. When she turned 7, I threw a small party at home. We invited her friends, baked a homemade cake, and decorated the house in bright colors. It was supposed to be a happy family day. The only reason I thought to invite Michelle was because I wanted to see the look of joy on Katie's face. But Michelle brushed it off. "I've got a medical conference that day. I really can't miss it." I believed her and told Katie, "It's okay. She's just really busy." Katie looked a little disappointed, but still managed a small smile, as if trying to reassure me instead. But a few days later, I opened social media without thinking and froze. There was Michelle, smiling on a beach with a glass of champagne in her hand. The photo was tagged with things like "weekend vibes" and "well-deserved." She took a selfie with the ocean behind her, full of confidence. In that moment, the phone in my hand felt unbearably heavy. Just a few days earlier, Michelle had told me she was too busy with a medical conference to come to the birthday party I planned for my daughter. But the truth was completely different. She hadn't gone to any conference, she was partying at a beach resort with her friends. That realization pierced through me. All the emotions I had suppressed suddenly erupted. Despite all I'd done, paying tuition, sending money, she'd never once said thank you from the heart. But worse than that, what I couldn't forgive was her complete disregard for Katie. Even if she couldn't come, a simple apology, a message, anything would have meant something. Instead, she told a lie and went off to a resort without a word or a gift for the niece who had been looking forward to seeing her. That betrayal hurt the most. And even then, was I supposed to stay silent? To Michelle, I was just an ATM. A bottomless source of money she could tap into guilt-free whenever she wanted. Someone she could betray without hesitation. That night, I couldn't sleep. In the quiet of our bedroom, I lay staring at the ceiling, listening to my husband and daughter breathing beside me. Realizing that everything I had believed in was a lie. It was a kind of loss I couldn't even put into words. But beneath that loss, a new emotion stirred. I had never asked for anything, not even gratitude. Michelle's success had been my pride. But should I remain silent, even when basic respect had been trampled on? As I asked myself that, the words came quietly. "It's over." I was surprised at how calm I felt. It was like waking up from a long sleep. I'm Katie's mother. I'm Nicholas's wife. And more than anything, I'm a person with my own life. I wasn't born to be someone else's sacrifice. My time, my feelings, my life, they are not just resources for others to use. I've done more than enough. And that's why I decided. It's time to show them the truth and hold them accountable. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about lashing out in anger. To me, this was just a reckoning. A long overdue settling of the roles and feelings that had been blurred and ignored for years. I glanced at the clock on the lounge wall: 7:52 p.m. The party would still be going. I imagined Michelle and my mother proudly accepting congratulations as if I'd never existed. I took a small breath and whispered to myself, "It's time to tell the truth?" Quietly, but with conviction. I stood up and walked back toward the ballroom. After exiting the elevator, I pushed open the golden doors once again. Inside, a speech was in progress. A man I assumed to be Michelle's advisor was on stage, praising her as a future leader in the field of medicine. Michelle stood beside him, calm and composed. She looked like a completely different person from the one who had coldly said to me, "Your role is over." I approached the MC and spoke softly. "May I say a few words?" Just for a couple of minutes. He looked startled, but I didn't miss the faint flicker of understanding in his expression. As the microphone was handed to me, a ripple of whispers spread through the hall. But I wasn't afraid. I walked calmly to the stage, stood beneath the spotlight, and faced the crowd. "Good evening. I'm Jessica, Michelle's older sister. I came here today to celebrate her achievements." My tone was ordinary, almost warm. I could feel the tension in the room ease slightly. "I know many of you are proud of Michelle. I was one of those people too. But there are things you deserve to know." I chose my words carefully. Michelle's tuition, $8,000 a year, was more than our mother could afford, so I paid it every year. The room fell silent. She told me scholarships weren't enough to live on, so I sent money every month. But the truth is that money was spent on resort vacations and designer goods. Michelle tried to shout something from the back, but my voice through the mic overpowered hers. "I'm married. I have a child, and even so, we cut back on our own lives to support her. I didn't just cover her tuition, I took over the mortgage on our family home too. Without me, she wouldn't have had the life she enjoys now." I scanned the crowd. Their faces were a mix of shock and disbelief. Michelle's cheeks were burning red. My mother had gone pale. Still, I never asked for anything in return. Because we were family. Because I wanted her to live her dream. My voice faltered for a brief moment. But I continued. "And yet today, my sister and mother told me, your role is over. You don't belong here." They had me thrown out of the venue. The room held its breath. I wanted this day to be a celebration of her success. But now I'm claiming it as the day I take back my own life. Before stepping off the stage, I added one last thing. If standing here makes me out of place, then so be it. But the one who truly needs to reconsider their place isn't me. I handed the microphone back to the MC. I didn't wait for applause. I wasn't looking for praise. I simply left the truth behind and walked away. Outside the hotel, I felt a strange lightness in my chest. As if I had finally laid down a burden I'd been carrying for years. That night, when I got home, Katie greeted me sleepily. "Welcome back, Mommy." At her voice, I finally let myself cry. After she was asleep, I sat in the living room with Nicholas, and I finally spoke. "Today, they told me my job is done." He frowned. "What does that mean?" I told him everything that had happened at the party. He listened silently until I finished, then sighed deeply. "I've been worried that you were giving too much, that you were breaking yourself to hold them up." I shook my head. When Michelle got into med school, there was no money. I was the only one who could pay. So I thought it was just what I had to do. But I wrapped my hands around the cold mug in front of me. "After everything I've done, why did they say that to me? What did I do wrong?" He gently placed his hand over mine. "You didn't do anything wrong. You were taken advantage of because you're kind. Because you thought being family meant you had to carry it all. But now it's okay to draw the line." His words sank into me. I knew I had to change. Just throwing emotions at them wouldn't fix anything. What I needed was action. Something real. The next day, I told Nicholas. "I'm going to take formal action about the house. I'll talk to a lawyer and start the eviction process." He simply nodded and held my hand. "I've seen everything, Jessica. It's time to close the chapter properly." For the first time, his words made me feel something I hadn't in years. The comfort of knowing I wasn't alone. That weekend, I visited a lawyer's office. Calmly, methodically, I submitted all the financial records, mortgage paperwork, and legal documentation confirming my ownership and usage rights. After carefully listening, the attorney nodded. "Legally, the property is in your name. You have full rights to request that your family vacate the premises. We'll begin with a certified notice. If they don't comply, we'll proceed with legal eviction." On my way home, I paused and stepped into the old bakery I used to visit as a teenager. Back when I was the one cooking and cleaning in that house, this little shop had been my only escape. The warm scent of butter and freshly baked bread felt like a quiet whisper from the past. "You did well." A few days later, the certified letter was delivered. The response came quickly. From the other end of the line came my mother's furious voice. "What are you thinking? Telling us to move out now? We've lived in that house for years." I replied in a steady voice. "Do you remember who's been paying the mortgage since Dad passed? That house is in my name. I've carried that responsibility all this time. But not anymore. There's been no gratitude, no respect. I have no reason to keep holding on to this relationship." "So you're just abandoning your family?" I thought family meant mutual support, not one person endlessly sacrificing. "I'm not a puppet whose only purpose is to hold others up. It's time I start protecting myself." I paused for a moment, then added quietly, and besides, didn't you say my role was over? If that's true, then maybe Michelle can help you now. She is a successful doctor after all, isn't she? A few seconds of silence, then the call cut off without a word. A week later, my lawyer informed me, if the house isn't vacated by the deadline, we'll file for a formal eviction. I didn't hesitate. I was done letting emotions dictate my decisions. I didn't want a dramatic courtroom battle. I moved forward, calmly, step by step, grounded in facts. I chose to close the chapter not with feelings, but with action and evidence after years of being led by emotion. And on the day of the eviction deadline, I returned to the house. It was empty. With the eviction process complete and the legal dispute over the house title finally settled, peace, true, rightful peace had at last returned to my life, but not peacefully so. In the spaces left behind, memories crept in. Regrets whispered. But I didn't want to stop. I wanted those years I spent supporting others, those years I was made to feel worthless to mean something. I didn't want to end as the sister who was used. I wanted to rewrite that story. It was then, back at the school kitchen, that I overheard a conversation between two coworkers. My son's doing okay in school, but college? I don't know. Tuition is just out of reach. It was Gina, the always smiling woman I worked with. Even with scholarships, it barely covers anything. We only have one child and still, it's terrifying. Another woman replied, I just wish kids who work hard had a real chance. Their words froze me in place, ladle in hand. That night, I began writing in a notebook thoughts, ideas, needs. Kids who can't afford tuition because of their home situations. Children with potential, no matter where they come from. Those quietly working hard without anyone noticing. As I wrote, I realized this wasn't about Michelle. It was about me. The girl I used to be. And that's how the idea for the Jessica Lawrence Education Support Fund was born. Launching it as an official nonprofit required funding, paperwork, but I had support now. Nicholas helped with the legal logistics and offered me part of his real estate office as our starting space. It was a quiet sunlit room and it became the foundation of something new. One day, as we worked on filing, our legal advisor said, Jessica, your experiences, they're not scars. They're your strength. Support that comes from lived reality, that's what resonates. Those words lifted me. I was no longer waiting to be helped. I had become someone who gave help. 6 months after the foundation launched, we held our first scholarship ceremony. We selected 3 students from the local public high school. All came from difficult backgrounds. All had strong grades and dreams that could speak clearly and confidently. Their families were invited to the event. One mother cried as she repeated, thank you so much. I gently placed a hand on her shoulder. It's okay. Your child has potential. And I've always believed in that. On the way home, Katie grabbed my hand tightly. Mom, you were so cool today. When I grow up, I want to be just like you. Those words made me finally begin to feel proud of the path I had chosen. Then one day, a bundle of letters arrived at the office. Thanks to you, I got into college. Without the scholarship, I wouldn't have made it. Truly, thank you. Now I want to be someone who helps others too. Each letter was filled with trembling gratitude. The handwriting was clumsy but honest, heartfelt. I held them to my chest and closed my eyes. I never started this hoping to be repaid. And yet, knowing that my choices had brought light into someone else's life filled me with quiet joy. Even after being shattered by the words of Michelle and my mother, I was glad I chose to rise. I had walked forward, trusting myself, and now I knew, without doubt, that it had been the right path. After Michelle and my mother moved out, I never learned where they went. Rumors said Michelle had struggled with the brutal reality of medical training and eventually dropped out. Now I heard she was working nights just to get by. My mother, rather than offering support, reportedly scolded her, harshly blaming her for being weak until the two of them finally went their separate ways. But even when I heard those stories, I felt nothing. Their current lives were simply the result of the choices they had made. Once we may have been family, but now, no matter what path they walk, it will never again intersect with mine. Because my life, it had finally begun to move forward. In a sunlit park, Nicholas and Katie laughed together. Seated on a bench, I watched the trees swaying gently in the breeze and listened to the sound of their voices. Katie ran through the grass, light as spring itself, and just watching her filled my heart. Somewhere along the way, this peace had become my new normal. I no longer lived in fear of anyone. No longer at the mercy of someone else's needs. I spent each day not as someone's sacrifice, but as a woman walking in her own truth with the family that truly mattered. Nicholas remained as kind as ever. He never spoke in grand declarations, but in his quiet gaze, I always saw understanding and faith in me. I'm proud of you for finding your own path, he once told me. I'll never forget that night. Katie is 10 now. She chooses her days with her own will, laughs freely with her friends, reads books she loves, and speaks dreams aloud with shining eyes. She is the free, radiant girl I once only wished I could be. And in my heart, I knew cutting ties with my mother and sister had been the right decision. The work of our nonprofit had since spread beyond the state, and next year, a new scholarship program was set to launch. We were reaching more children, our staff were growing, and I was still learning every day. No matter how far we expanded, the core of my heart never wavered to believe in someone's future. That belief had become my life's purpose. Suddenly, Katie ran toward me with a bright smile. "Mom, look," she called, waving her little hand. I stood slowly and opened my arms wide. She ran straight into them, and I caught her with everything I had. "You did amazing," I whispered, holding her close. In my arms was everything I had fought so hard to protect, a future worth every breath. It would never be stolen from me again, never trampled on. I was living now not alone, but surrounded by a family who saw me in a community that truly needed me. I had learned to value bonds of the heart over those of blood. I am no longer just the lunch lady. I don't stop at supporting others. I move forward by empowering them. I am living my life.